of our radio program. Good to have you with us here on Mad Dog Unleashed, the great Sirius XM 82. We take you until 6 o'clock in the east, 3 o'clock in the west, and we'll get you set up here as far as your potpourri is concerned. We did obviously a segment today with Randy Moss. That's the Preakness tomorrow. We will be with you on that topic again on Friday. Tom Hammond will join us as we give you an extra hour tomorrow. Steve and Danny Cannell. Steve's under the weather badly. Did a good job coming in today. Great job. So we'll go 2 o'clock tomorrow, and Danny Cannell's out tomorrow too. And we're going to move Danny Grasser an extra hour, and we'll go give you a 2 to 6 program tomorrow. So we want to make sure you guys know that if you want to look for us at 2. Try to spare a monologue into 3, but we got to give you that extra hour tomorrow. We look forward to it. So there you go. All right, couple of things to get to here as we start our day. Obviously, we did a lot of Golden State and Houston at 3 o'clock. I'll just do a couple of seconds on that if you didn't hear it early. And to say it in a nutshell, I'll say this. And there are things that, the turnovers, and they were a little, erratic, and they haven't been as crisp this postseason as they were last postseason. Last year they only lost 1 postseason game. This year they have already lost 3. So and they haven't had Curry, I get it, but they have lost 3 postseason games. So it's a little different for them this year in 2018, which I'd be a touch concerned about if I was Golden State. But the bigger issue, and the issue that I'm most concerned about after last night, Houston convincing Game 2 win. Outside of Charles Barkley, nobody in America picked the Warriors to win in 4 games. I didn't. Not that I heard anywhere did anybody think that Golden State was going to win in a sweep. Everybody kind of thought with Houston 65 wins and everything, everybody basically considered the fact that the Rockets would win at least a game, maybe even 2 in this series. And so if you were going to say Houston would win a game, or maybe even 2, the games you would have thought they would win would be Game 2 and Game 5. I mean, so if you go with that premise, and that's what I thought, and I don't know if I should pick it, or last week when I made the prediction, I wavered between 5 and 6 too. I said 5 because I don't trust Houston when they face elimination in a big game based on last year. So I said 5. I think they would give up. Because Harden, he'd see the writing on the end of he'd see the writing on the wall, and I don't think he'd go out there with his boots up. But I did think they'd win Game 2. It's too early in the series when you lose the first game to think you're out of it. There's going to be, you're playing at home. That, you win this game, you're still involved a little bit. So, I mean, if you go with that premise, Houston didn't do anything that we're that surprised about. If Houston wants to surprise us, and if Houston wants to be in a situation where we're going to be very impressed with what they do, let them win a game in Oracle. And that's basically the bottom line. I mean, let them go out there now and win a game in Oracle, whether that be Sunday Game 3 or Tuesday Game 4. Let them go out there and win a game in the Bay Area, and then I'm going to sit there and say, you know what, it's a hell of a job. They got the Golden State to 2 games apiece. They have home court. It's a best of 3. They got 2 games in their building. Maybe they can beat Golden State. Let them do that. And then I'll be impressed. Now, I don't think they will. I still think Golden State is going to win both their home games. Golden State has not lost a home game since Game 7 against Cleveland. Put it another way, Durant has never lost a home playoff game while a member of the Warriors in his 2 years there so far. He's won 15 in a row. So, I'm going to have to see Houston win that game in that building before I believe that they are a viable candidate here in this conference final. Now, I will say this. Houston can shoot the ball. And, they shoot a million threes, and a lot of them are indefensible. They're so far out. And everybody's got to be concerned about Harden. So Houston could have that kind of night where they make 22, 23 threes. It's not impossible. They shoot 50 of them. It's not impossible. But I got to see it first to believe it. I would be very surprised if Houston won the 3rd game. Because I think Golden State, off losing badly here in Game 2, sitting around for 4 days, they're going to be raring to go on Sunday. The Game 4 could be close. Game 4 could be interesting. Remember now, the Warriors blew out the Pelicans in Game 1 and then played a very close Game 2. Same kind of theme here. Blow them out in Game 3, a close game 4. That's what I would predict right now. I would think Golden State win the 2 games in a row. We'll have to wait and see. Houston's put themselves in a conversation, at least, of making this a competitive series. But to really be competitive, let me see them win a game on the road. That's the first thing. Boston, Cleveland resumes on Saturday. Second thing is the NHL. 1 game last night. Winnipeg and Vegas. Vegas won a game 4-2. They got an empty net goal with 2 seconds to go. Vegas did 2 things last night. They scored 15, 20 seconds into the game. I really, got the place going, and they put Winnipeg back on their heels, and it really, dominated the first period based on scoring on their first shift. So that was number 1. Number 2, once Winnipeg tied the game, which they did in the second period, I think it was 19 seconds later when Vegas scored again. So the 2 points of that game where, Vegas may have been a little bit nervous was on the opening face-off. They eliminated that in a minute. And then, of course, when it was 1-1, and he eliminated that in 19 seconds. So they did what they had to do to establish themselves. Now, I will say this about Winnipeg. The last half of that game, last 30 minutes, they were the much better team. Much better. Now, they spotted themselves a 3-1 deficit, but they were a much, much better team. They got a little tired in the last 3 minutes. They did not do a good job with the extra attacker at the end down 3-2. They didn't have a lot of chances there in the last minute and a half of that game. And they got a little physically tired. But I'd say, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look exactly when it began. But I would say at the 11-minute mark of the second period through the 17-minute mark of the third, they were the far superior team. They scored a goal. They almost scored 2 or 3 more. Vegas did nothing, and Fleury bailed them out. Now, prior to that, Vegas was better, and Vegas played a good last 3 minutes. So take your pick. I still think it's a long series, but Vegas, they got a lot going for them right now. They're playing with a huge chip on their shoulder, which I think has helped them. They got a good home ice, which has helped them. I think Winnipeg won game 1 almost too easy. Winnipeg went from winning game 7 in Nashville, and then they won game 1 against the Knights on Saturday, where they scored 3 goals in the first 15 minutes. They almost came too easy for them. And I think Vegas, came out with a sense of urgency in game 2, and I don't think Winnipeg understood that they were going to have to match that. They let game 2 get away from them. They didn't play badly in game 2, but Vegas was the better team. And they get off to the bad start in game 3. So now there's no excuses. They know they're in a war. They were in a war in the second round. They're in a war again. And let's see if Winnipeg's got enough at their disposal to come back and win this series. Not going to be easy, and they could lose a game 7 at home. So we'll see. But they got to get to a game 7 first, and right now that is dubious from that standpoint. Washington and Tampa tonight, that's a game 4 of that series. Washington is saying all the right things about the fact that, they think that they can, they learned from game 3. They know what they have to do. They got to treat it like a road game. Aussie says we're not going to make a big deal about it. That's proofs in the pudding. Tampa, despite being outshot, had a huge lead there in game 3. They got themselves back in the series. I think Tampa will win again tonight. And I could also see Washington winning game 5. Home ice means nothing in these playoffs. I mean, Nashville won 2 games in Winnipeg. Winnipeg won 3 games in Nashville. Vegas won 2 games in Anaheim. In L.A. Vegas won 2 games in San Jose. San Jose won a game in Vegas. Pittsburgh won a couple of games in Washington won a couple of games in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh won a game in Washington. I mean, a home ice. Boston won a game in Tampa. Tampa won 2 in Boston. The home ice means nothing in the NHL playoffs, so I wouldn't be surprised if Washington could win game 5 in Tampa, or if Vegas could win a game 7 down the road in Winnipeg if they get that far. That's the second thing. Mike Slive passed away today. Sounds like a prostate cancer yesterday. He's 77 years of age. He was on our channel on a couple of occasions. As a matter of fact, it's 10 years ago, but for our channel on a weekend, I covered the SEC championship game. It was Florida and Alabama, I believe. I think it was Florida or Alabama, pretty sure. And I covered the game. It may have been it was Alabama against somebody. I think it was Florida. And I covered that game, and we did a special Saturday show. We were there for 2 days. We were there Friday and Saturday. And we did a 4-hour or a 3-hour Saturday show at the Atlanta Convention Center, which was at the time right adjacent to the Georgia Dome. And we had him on, and he was very good. Excellent. Chris, nice to be on. Just a nice man. So condolences to the SEC, which he ran for 13 years. And, of course, his family and everything else. Slive I didn't even know he was sick. But he was an unsung, at least in the country, not an SEC country. In the country, I think Slive was and I think I'm pronouncing his last name properly. I think he was a very unsung hero. You know, he put together the college playoff. He made the SEC a huge conference. He was big on the Power 5 idea. He's a big-time executive, quietly. So we wanted to make sure we mentioned that today. And then finally, here at this section of the show, the ACC is going to propose, well, there's two things I want to mention. One is the ACC. They are going to propose an extra 4 teams in the NCAA tournament. They're going to make it 72. Now, I read their story. I just read it. They gave you 3 reasons. The ACC had its annual convention in Amelia Island, so a lot of the ACC coaches gave you their reasons. They gave you 3 reasons. Number 1, travel, where, the first 4 in Dayton, very tricky to have the West Coast team go from Dayton to somewhere else and travel to play in Dayton and everything else. So if they put another 4 teams in the NCAA and make it 72, they could have another first 4 somewhere, and they could do a situation where they could make it a little easier for travel. That was number 1. Number 2, they feel that maybe it helps the Syracuse made the tournament. Their team that gets snubbed, that had a pretty good regular year, yet goes 8-10, it gives them further openings into the NCAA. And as, I'd like to see it more go to the mid-major, the St. Mary's of the world, but they feel that they can add that kind of team that's on a cusp and put them in the tournament, whether that be a mid-major or whether that be a team that would be, 9th in their conference tournament, or 9th in their conference, who's a big team, like a Notre Dame, with the injury. They didn't make the NCAA, right? That kind of team. And then number 3, this would make, and they are stupid when they say this would only put 20% of the NCAA teams in the NCAA tournament. Was there 400 teams? Is that what it is? 370 teams, Division I programs. And so, in essence, this would only put 20% of the NCAA eligible teams in the NCAA. Now, I don't know, 20%, that's 25% would be 280. So somewhere along that line, this would make it only 20%. You can't do it that way. From a man, when another league says they have 50% in the tournament in their postseason, they only got 32 teams in the league. When you have, you can't compare the NCAA field of 320 teams. You can't compare that to the NHL that's got 30 teams. That's ridiculous. You can't compare that. And they say, well, there's a lot of college bowls, and everybody gets a chance to play in a college bowl, so we want to equal what we have for football. Well, the idea is there's too many bowls. There's empty seats. Nobody wants to see a 5-7 team that playing in a bowl game. So in essence, they're adding to mediocrity. I don't get 72 teams. I just don't think it's necessary. I really don't. And that was an item today that was addressed out of the ACC. And then finally, the Browns are going to be part of Hard Knocks next year in the HBO. Now, the NFL encourages teams to take part in Hard Knocks. A lot of coaches can't stand it. Some owners like it. Some owners don't. The Browns with Mayfield would fit. I don't think the Browns have been part of Hard Knocks before. I don't think anybody cares about Tampa or Cincinnati, 2 previous teams. Mayfield, now, if I was Hugh Jackson, I would not want to be part of Hard Knocks because I got Mayfield, who, is a little bit of he's a little bit of a, celebrity to begin with, and you're going to make him more of a celebrity on Hard Knocks. I would not want him in the mix, But if you're the Browns who are 0-16 and Jimmy Haslam, who's trying to boost the brand, I guess I can understand. 17 after the hour, we continue here on Mad Dog.